Well, welcome to the Battleground to Breaking Ground on Texas Agribility's webinar today about how to start a farm and ranch business. Our guest speaker today is Doug Haveman, and he's the co-owner of Mesquite Field Farm, good friend of ours. He's been with our program probably almost since the beginning. I think it was about 2013. And he's helped a lot of our veterans and other beginning ranchers to get started in production agriculture, to start their farms. They've started their own farm, expanded their farm, and he's helped lots of folks get the skills and knowledge that needed to be successful in farming and ranching. So we're really excited to have him today. We're going to talk a little bit about our program, Battleground program, and Texas Agribility Project real quick at the beginning. But before we do that, I want to go ahead and have you guys take this survey. So if you will, in the chat box, there is a link to the survey. And if you will go ahead and open that survey, you'll enter your email address and you'll go ahead and complete the pre-questions in the survey, and then leave that link open. After we finish with the webinar, then you'll just go back to that link and you will go ahead and do the post survey questions. So there's only about a handful of questions, I think it's about 10. So if you will go ahead and do that, I'll give you about just a couple minutes to take care of that, and then we'll jump right back into the webinar. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. We've got the Battleground to Breaking Ground program and the Texas Agribility program. We're a program that serves active duty military veterans and other beginning farmer ranchers with and without disabilities. So our projects work together to kind of create a comprehensive program where we serve pretty well anybody interested in agriculture. We've got some education and programming around services to help out. So how we do that, what we do, we provide online and in-person education. We do farm and ranch business planning, management, production-specific practices. We have hands-on learning opportunities that are training farms, and we also do farm tours and workshops. We do disability support. We do our case management, farm assessment, disability recommendations, and resource referrals. The Battleground to Breaking Ground program is kind of our educational program. We do a one-day workshop, which is phase 1, and you can see all of those opportunities listed on our website. For phase 2, we do an online business planning course, and then on phase 3, we do 8 months of production agriculture education online based on the areas of production that you're interested in. And then we offer those hands-on opportunities, and we require you to get 100 hours of hands-on education with your mentors. So applications are available to that program in the summer and winter. The applications now for the spring cohort will be open until December 23rd. So it's a pretty extensive application process. If you're interested in it, go ahead and jump over to our website after the webinar, and you'll be able to see how to access that program and how to apply. We do have a couple upcoming opportunities. We have tax considerations for farmers and ranchers as a webinar, January 23rd. And we have a hands-on learning that's a basic welding class, pipe fence building workshop at our Gatesville Training Farm, January 25th and 26th. And then we'll have a lot more hands-on learnings and workshops and a couple more webinars posted probably after the first of the year. So you can join our calendar, actually subscribe to the calendar, and it'll notify you when we put on that calendar. I really suggest joining our newsletter. In our newsletter, you can join right off of our website, and McKinsey's really great at notifying us and other folks of when events are coming up. We don't only do our events, we also do notify folks of partners events, those kinds of things across the state. And No, it doesn't like my PowerPoint here. There we go. We do have recorded webinars that are on the site. We have resources for veteran farmers and ranchers. I really suggest, if you're interested in farming and ranching and you're interested in technical assistance that's available, financial funding that's available, those kinds of things, watch that webinar and you'll be able to see those different things that are available to you. We have selling at farmers markets. Mesquiteville Farm also did a marketing webinar for us, and we have a applicant webinar for the Young Farmer Grant on there as well. And that's where we'll post this one after we finish, and you'll be able to rewatch it if you're interested in that. So there's our links. You can hop on our website, farmranch.tamu.edu, or you can join our newsletter. We do have Facebook pages, the Planting Small Farms Facebook page. We notify about events, and that's kind of our partners events, kind of general production agriculture type stuff. And our Texas Agribility page, we have a lot of kind of disability support. We do post events through there as well. So join those if you can. And if you have any questions, just shoot us over an email. All right, Doug, I think it'll probably be easiest if you just want to tell me when you want me to change slides, and I will hand it over to you, sir. Maybe. Doug, are you still there? Okay, well, I will go ahead and kick off. We'll start with his introduction. So again, Doug Haveman joined our program through a workshop. He was actually a speaker for us back in about 2013. And their farm is Mesquiteville Farm down in Nixon, Texas, which is just a little bit south of San Antonio. And they raise grass-fed beef. They do some vegetable production. They do some special crop production. And they do a lot of educational type workshops for our program. We've done poultry. We've done fence building. They've done irrigation. I think there's a high tunnel one. So lots of different opportunities through Doug and what they do on Mesquiteville Farm. So if you get a chance, again, join our calendar and you'll see some different opportunities, ways to join them, and see what's going on their farms and ranches. So I'll give him one last chance, Doug. I don't want to steal your thunder here. Let me see. I might have muted him. Doug, I can see you're on, but I can't hear you. Let me see. He'll dial back in just a second. So let me give them, while we're waiting on him to dial back in. So let's utilize the chat box, and or you can just unmute yourself if you know how to mute yourself back, and let us know what are some points that you would really like us to cover specifically in the workshop. We have, of course, points that we wanted to cover, but we also like to kind of tailor these to some things that are specific to your needs. So if you will, go ahead and use the chat box and just if you'll put a couple things in there that you'd like us to touch on over the next about 45 minutes, we will make sure that we do that.
Can you hear me now, Erin?
I can, my friend.
That was crazy. I was talking away, but you couldn't hear me.
That happens to me all the time as well. And you're
I apologize.
No, it's okay. You're my technical person. So if it's happening to you, I can only imagine what is going on over there.
It's driving me crazy. So I appreciate the intro. I heard every bit of it. what I wanted to do is thank everyone for joining today. It's an honor for us to be able to talk to all of you in every stage of farming that you're in and ranching that you're in. We understand what it's like, and it's amazing to get to talk to people who are doing the same thing. So if you're in the Battleground program, you get a lot of information from the staff and the curriculum. What we wanted to do was touch on some of the things that most people don't get a chance to talk about, and things that affected us directly. So we have a small 20-acre farm out in Nixon, Texas, outside of San Antonio. And everyone always talks to you about purchasing land, and everybody starts looking at the internet and they find a piece of property and they go out and they say, yep, it's got trees, it's got water, it's awesome, I like it. Well, we did the same thing. What we didn't understand was demographics. We did pick the correct location, like we're 70 miles from Austin, 70 miles from San Antonio, so it's a good space for us to sell in. But there were some other things we didn't get. So in the demographics, you really have to consider the area you're looking for land, where you're going to be, and what your customer base is going to be in that area. Can they afford gourmet lettuce or your pastured poultry, grass-fed beef, or any other products that you're manufacturing or producing on your farm? And is your property close enough for people to make a quick drive out? We are really on the edge of that. People from San Antonio and Austin may not necessarily want to drive 70 miles to get to our farm to buy our product and turn around and go back. So we need to make sure we get the product to them. So set a distance that you would normally be willing to travel, and then ask your friends and family and other people that you're acquainted with what they'd be willing to drive to buy 10 pounds of ground beef. The second point was access to resources. You have easy access to resources you'll need for your farm. Is there a feed store nearby your farm that doesn't have a 50% markup on their products that you can buy 60 miles away at Tractor Supply? So you really have to start looking at your cost of traveling to get to products that you can't get locally. Also, is there a veterinarian near you? Will they do house calls? Will you have to take your animals to them? That can make for quite an expensive trip. We had a single cow on our farm get bloat last year, and that was 2 separate trips at $500 a trip just for the house call, not including the medication and services. So definitely something to think about. And cost is something we always look at. The cost of your land affects the property and the profits that you're going to make as you start selling things. You need to make sure that you include your mortgage costs, your land overhead costs. You need to really choose where you're buying and see if it fits your demographics. Like in San Antonio, land north of town is 4 to 5 times more expensive than land south of town. So it might be something that saves you some money, or you have to make a conscious decision to spend that much more. Aaron, if you could change the slide, please.
If my computer will cooperate, I can. There we go.
County lines. The background of that slide is actually our farm. And that dark line that runs right across the top right-hand corner is an interesting thing that we didn't get until after we purchased the property. Rather than getting a single tax bill or 2 tax bills a year, we get 5, because just on the north side of that line is the city limits of Nixon, Texas, and the county of Gonzales. And south of that line is Wilson County. So we get 5 tax bills a year on our farm and have to pay 2 counties plus city tax. So we didn't even think about that when we purchased the property until after we had bought it. Then we realized, oh, this is going to be fun. So definitely look at where your county lines are, what your tax bills are going to be like, what your tax assessors are looking at, and how much their valuations are annually. You can find all of that online. Make sure that on that little portion of our property that's in the city limits of Nixon, we of course are ag exempt. But if they really wanted to be sticklers, that piece north of that line, we would not be able to run cattle on, because it's not legal to run cattle in the city limits. So make sure that your county lines, city lines, all of those pieces and parts that you meet all of your county and city code. Go ahead and change it, Aaron. So now I wanted to talk, so that covers property, and I think, Aaron, you're going to hold questions to the end.
We can probably take a little bit intermittently, so I would say if we do a couple slides, and then maybe we'll take a few questions.
Okay, are there any questions so far on land purchasing, land location?
Look at our here.
I don't hear any questions. So I'll move into the next piece. Go ahead.
I don't think so. I think we are good for now.
Okay, we'll move to the next section. So this is really talking about if you're going to rotationally graze and raise livestock or pastured poultry, or if you're going to do crops or specialty crops, you really need to think about the brittleness zone that you're in and what will grow there and what won't grow there. So we really don't talk a lot about the brittleness zone until we get into rotational grazing pieces and people specifically start looking at how to grow specific grasses that will be most beneficial to their animals. So I'm actually going to read this one, and you'll have this available to you. It's an important piece, and you can find it if you've done any of the Holistic Management International courses. You can find some of this data there. So all soil environments, regardless of total amounts of precipitation, exist on a scale of brittle to very brittle, of non-brittle to very brittle. This is on a 10-point scale, with a 1 being non-brittle or a forest, and a 10 being very brittle, a desert. Brittleness is measured by the consistency of precipitation, level of humidity throughout the entire year, how dead plant material decomposes, decay or chemical oxidation, and physical weathering, how fast new biological communities on bare soil surfaces become established, and on undisturbed soil, how fast additional new successional organisms develop. So if you're looking at a piece of property to buy and you really want to grow crops, you need to understand not only what is your soil, but how much nutrients or how many nutrients are in your soil and how much precip you get. So as you walk around and look at the ground, look at the grasses that are there, you need to understand some other products, like what insects are working above ground. What do you see? Do you see ants? Do you see litter from and waste from other animals on the property? How much of it is decayed? How much of it is not decayed? All of that makes a difference. And where you live, the amount of rainfall you get, the level of humidity in the air, and how it's distributed. If you think about how long it takes vegetation to break down, for example, when you look around, do you see moss growing on brick buildings, or recently fallen logs already partially decayed, or living organisms moving about on the surface of the soil? All of these are signs of a non-brittle environment. On the other hand, perhaps you'll see tall stands of dead gray-colored grass. Logs have been lying in the same place for years, but have not changed significantly in appearance. Only 2 or 3 types of plants with large areas of bare ground, etc. These are indications of a brittle environment. Go ahead and change it, please, Aaron. So that brittleness, the brittleness factor really affects and tells you the quality of soil that you have and how much what you're going to have to do to improve it, how much water you're going to have to add, how many other nutrients you're going to have to add to these products, to your soil, to provide the things that your grasses and your successional plants need, or your crops are going to need. And if you think about the livestock you're producing or poultry that you're producing, the quality of grass provides the quality of meat, right? So it's all tied together. The key to the advance of any biological community towards greater complexity is the soil cover. When soil is bare and exposed, the community loses complexity and begins to decline. If bare soil is covered with living plants or dead plant material, biodiversity and community complexity increases. When a community is in the early stages of development or is reduced for a complex to a simplified community of few species, it is significantly less viable. So when we started on our farm and we cleared our property, we had a ton of bare soil. The first plants to return were what everyone calls weeds. It's Mother Nature's way of trying to get a cover on the soil so that it doesn't bake and kill the microbiology in it. So it's important that we keep any bare spots covered with anything. We can cover them with hay, we can cover them with compost or biochar or soil from another space, from someone else's land. But what you really want to do is make sure that you get something growing on it and that you keep the sun from baking it. Once the soil temperature reaches in the 90-degree range, you start losing soil viability on anything that's under bare ground. It's going to require a lot of fertilization. So populations of a single plant, insects, or small animal species can multiply very rapidly to annoying numbers, which we call weeds, pests, or invaders. The more complex and diverse the biological community, the fewer the fluctuations in numbers within populations of species, and the more stable communities become. You can gauge a community's health by looking at the diversity of its species, the numbers within those populations of those species, and the age structure within those populations. The greater the diversity of species, the greater the complexity, which tends to promote greater stability within your soil community. If you want to protect a certain species, you can create an environment in which it thrives. Likewise, if you want to reduce the numbers within the species, you can create an environment that is less than ideal for it. In either case, look to the age structure to tell you which direction you're heading. So as you're improving your grasses, if you have, for example, we have a lot of silverleaf nightshade when we first cleared this property. Silverleaf nightshade is an indicator of compacted soil and soil lacking calcium. So as we started rotating our cattle through there and not allowing them to huddle in one space and forcing them to move through the paddocks, and the cattle doing the damage that their feet do, their hooves do to the soil, which we want, breaks the soil and holds water. But that space, once we got them on it and then got them off of it the next day, they didn't have the ability to congregate and compact the soil. And over time, within the first year, we went from 4 species of grass to 16 species of grasses during each of our seasons. As we cover cropped and started building our humus layers, we were up to 26 species of grass without ever planting a seed. Aaron, if you could please change it. Resources and water. To sustain the maximum amount of life, all but wetlands and true deserts need to maintain an effective water cycle in which plants can maximize their use of rainfall, snowmelt, snowpack, or runoff. You want to manage it in such a way that you can create a situation where very little water evaporates off the soil and runoff that does occur happens slowly and carries very little soil or organic matter with it. An example of that, when our soil was bare, right after we cleared it, we had about a 2.5-inch rain one afternoon, and it took a huge amount of our topsoil to a berm that we had created between our 2 pastures because we had nothing, no grass, no roots, no anything holding that soil in place, which is another reason you need to keep it covered. So we had to respread that soil back out over the north field so we didn't lose that topsoil. And as you add topsoil and create more topsoil over time, the more carbon you can put into your soil, the more water holding capacity it has. So on an average acre of land that has a 2-inch good layer of 2 inches of topsoil, you can hold about 25,000 gallons of water in your soil, which helps drought-proof your property. The roots of your plants will just go deeper to get it. And as water hits your land from a rain, if it's covered, the rain doesn't beat the soil up and break the soil. The plants use it. The plants hold the roots in place. The water does not run off fast. It's quickly absorbed into the land, into the soil. Anything that does run off runs slow and doesn't create erosion paths through your field, which are also very important. A good air-water balance. That window popped up. A good air-water balance exists in the soil, enabling plant roots to absorb water readily, as most plants require oxygen as well as water around their roots for optimal growth. Most land managers know that the average rainfall their land receives, and they manage accordingly. Unfortunately, rain can fall in higher and lower amounts than average. An effective water cycle tends to even out these imbalances because when the land is healthy, the rain that does fall can be used much more efficiently. When we originally started on our farm, we could hold about a ½ inch of rain per hour. We can now hold, after 10 years of improving our soil, almost 14 inches of rain an hour on this farm. So as you improve your soils, your holding capacity grows significantly. Change, please, Aaron. Is it changing, Aaron? It did. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Additional, so all of you, we'll stop there and ask if there are any questions so far.
There was one question from Mike, and that asked if the purchase of the 20 acres was based on as much land as you could afford, or was it targeted for an intended cattle operation? Because he said it seems small for cattle.
Yeah, everybody thinks it's small. Even the gentlemen and ladies at A&M say there's no way you can raise the number of head of cows we're raising on our property. We intentionally purchased this piece of property. We could have purchased some larger pieces, but this is exactly where we wanted and what we wanted. We have multiple revenue streams that we follow, so we don't just do grass-fed beef. We do pasture poultry and turkey as well, plus niche crops. We're putting in orchards this year. So we have multiple revenue streams, and what we were after was making X amount of dollars per revenue stream would give us the total revenue we were looking to make on the farm. And we wouldn't be stuck in a single revenue stream for our sole source of income. We had multiple streams so that if we took a loss in one revenue stream, we would still be making a profit in the others. And rotational grazing, just so you know, 20 acres, 16 of that is grazable acres, and we're running about 14 head grazing 16 acres on grass. We do, like during the winter now, we cover cropped, but we're in a drought year. So we did not have good germination, so we are supplemental feeding with hay today. There's another question. What methods have you used to improve pastures, increase grass species? So it's been our experience. There's several ways to do that. You can, of course, purchase seed and plant seed to gain the varieties that you want. There's all kinds of places to do it. We purchase, if we're planting seed, we would buy from either Douglas King seed or Native American seed, or two of the places that we've recommended that people purchase from. We planted grass seed our first year, but what we found is that as we started our rotation, there's a pretty good seed bank, unless you're in pure sand. There's a pretty good seed bank in the soil of what will grow natively in your area. As you manage your livestock through rotation, and improve your soil, those other grasses will start arriving on their own. We've had everything, but we had a stand of Virginia wild rye come through here that we never planted a seed, and it actually saved us in our second year. We had a drought, and we shifted our rotational grazing model, and in 29 days, we were covered in Virginia wild rye. So the methods you use in managing your livestock, if you're going to do rotational grazing, will improve your soils by itself. Any other questions? Okay, so we'll go to the next slide, which is business basics, additional planning and thoughts. Through your coursework and material, you're beginning to develop your business plans. We wanted to offer some additional information for you to consider while developing your plans. Please think about what your entire farm means. The entire farm you are concerned with managing is your individual entire farm, or a larger entire farm, meaning if you have a piece of property that is your farm, but you could be leasing land, you could be in a co-op, but you also have a lot of other individuals that impact your farm. You have people that are going to help you make decisions, or people that you've hired that become part of your staff. All of those people have information about your farm and your processes, and you have to be flexible to understand that. We would like to offer that there are often other people involved in either making or influencing your decisions. There are resources that exist that you've built over time, land, equipment, clients, etc., and money which you have access to. Knowing who and what your entire farm includes, or what your entire farm includes, helps you determine who makes the decisions, who merely influences the decisions made, and it defines boundaries around what you can and cannot manage through your planning and decision making. To better understand who influences your decisions related to the entire farm, you need to create an inventory of decision makers or your management team. You will also need to understand the assets, the land, livestock, buildings, clients, vendors, money, etc., that your management team influences or controls. You can change it, Aaron, please. So as you're working through your business plans, some of you have them. Those of you that are in the program are constantly working on your business plans. So we wanted to offer, I mean, you have some of the best people that can help you through your business planning processes and tell you whether they're viable or not. And you're asking all the right questions. We just wanted to give you a few extra questions to ask that we did not see were being stated straight up, and it's kind of a different way of thinking about it. Once you've defined who your management team is, they need to create you need to create an entire farm goal, what it is. This should describe the life that you want to live on the farm based on the values that you care about deeply. They should describe the life you want to live, what they must create or produce to have that life, and what must be present to sustain that life into the future. The entire farm goal is the true north that guides all your decisions and actions related to the farm and its industries. It is the connection between what you value to your most important assets, including land, humans, and money, which helps you establish priority and focus on which objectives will help you best create the results you want with the least amount of risk of unintended consequences. After you define the entire farm you're managing and create your goals, you're better prepared to create your mission and vision statements and identify necessary goals, objectives, and strategies and/or policies. These two initial steps help to ensure the missions, goals, objectives, strategies, policies will move you in the direction you want and need to go. Then, to make sure your decision is socially, economically, and environmentally sustainable, in HMI we call that the triple bottom line, you'll need to consider how your decisions will impact the health of the ecosystem processes. You will also need to assess what tools you have available to manage your resources within the context of those decisions. Go ahead and change it, please, Aaron. So what we're saying is that all of those people that are involved in your farm in some form or fashion, whether it be family members advising you on what to do, or advisors that you've befriended over time that are helping you with your processes and your decisions, you need to make sure that your intended end result is built into this process. So, for example, we had about 8 people that were involved in making the original decisions of the farm. But it really comes down to what the goals are that Melissa and I had regarding what we wanted to produce, how we wanted to produce it, and who we wanted to produce it for. So all of those other people that were involved could tell us some of the activities that we needed to do, but we really needed to define how we were going to do that and what our lifestyle was going to be after we did it. I had a young man that is not a veteran come up to me the other day and asked, or told me that his intention was to retire from his job at 50 years old and build a farm that would produce $120,000 a year in profit, and he was going to do that in the first year. And it's really not feasible to do that unless you have a large amount of capital that you intend to put into that space to help get you to that $120,000 of profit a year. That's a hard thing to do anytime in farming. It's really hard to do it in the first year of farming. So, any questions on that so far? Okay, so let's talk about naming your business. This really falls into the category of my wife's specialty. She focuses on the marketing side of this. She does this for a living, an off-farm job, and has brought it into the classroom and into the training sessions here. So these are her statements that I will go ahead and read. You'll find them in that marketing class, I'm sure, that Erin has recorded online. The name needs to sound good when it's said out loud. I'm a big fan of alliteration, using words that start with the same consonant. Mesquite Field Farm, just make sure you say it out loud a lot, and make sure that it isn't a she sells seashells on the seashore situation. People need to say the name on the radio or a video or in a conversation, so it needs to be easy, roll off the tongue, and not be confusing. Use a name that has a meaning to it that conveys a benefit. If you heard it, you'd know right away what it is. Also, make sure that the name isn't too generic. Don't try to be everything to everyone with your name, but do be a little bit more specific about what it is that you do. Avoid Web 2.0 syndrome. I still don't know if you spell Flickr with an ER or not. And I definitely have no idea how to spell delicious with a .ou without looking it up. The sort of mildly dyslexic spelling is so last decade. Potential customers for your new venture of Computer for You should be able to easily look up the name, and they shouldn't be asking whether you is spelled Y-O-U or the letter U. Beware of initials. They're boring. Yes, IBM and 3M have gotten away with these initials, but these are multi-billion-dollar corporations that have been around for a really long time. You can do the same when you've brought in billions of dollars over 100 years. Until then, rely on a name that's interesting. IBM originally did start out as International Business Machines in the 1940s. Didn't change it to IBM, the 3 letters, until later. Use specifics. Don't use a generic name that doesn't mean anything. I like names that take advantage of details such as numbers and days. My buddy Tim Ferriss found a pretty specific and compelling name for his book, The 4-Hour Workweek. Other titles that use numbers to focus in on specifics include 8-Minute Abs and 5-Hour Energy. Make sure you can trademark the name. Depending on how big you want to build that brand, this is an important consideration. It's worth it to check out uspto.gov or the new site, trademarkia.com, before setting on a name. Erin, could you change it, please? This is one of the most prolific questions we get is, what type of business should I set up? I am no attorney, and by no means am I a professional that can tell you exactly how to do this and what is the best thing for you to do in your situation, because your business, your farm, and your ideas are yours. Our business, Mesquite Field Farm, is an LLC. What we wanted to do in this presentation was to give you the ability to give you some quick notes, pros and cons of each type of business you could start, and provide you some pointers in the direction you could go to look and see what works for you. So, sole proprietorship is an unincorporated business with one owner or jointly owned by a married couple. Pros of a sole proprietorship: easy to start up, no need to register your business with the state. No corporate formalities or paperwork requirements, such as meeting minutes, bylaws, etc. You can deduct most business losses on your personal tax return. Tax filing is easy. Simply fill out and attach a Schedule C profit or loss form from business to your personal income tax return. The cons of a sole proprietorship: as the only owner, you're personally liable for all of the business debt and liabilities. Someone who wins a lawsuit against your business can take your personal assets, your car, your bank accounts, and your home in some situations. There's no real separation between you and the business, so it's more difficult to get a business loan and raise money. Lenders and investors prefer LLCs or corporations. It's harder to build business credit without a registered business entity. Go ahead and change it, Erin, please. General partnership, or an unincorporated business with 2 or more owners. The pros of a general partnership, they're easy to start. You don't have to register them with the state. No corporate formalities or paperwork requirements, just like the last one. No meeting minutes, no bylaws, etc. You don't need to absorb all the business losses on your own because the partners divide the profits and the losses. Owners can deduct most business losses on their personal tax returns. The cons of general partnership: each owner is personally liable for the business debts and other liabilities. And what we mean, for an example, is, let's say you're selling grass-fed beef and you sell at a farmer's market to someone. They don't get it home in time to keep it frozen because they forgot an ice chest, and the product makes them sick, and they sue you in court. Well, if you don't have another form other than a general partnership or a sole proprietorship, they can absolutely take everything you own in that lawsuit. So depending on what the court finds, if they find you guilty, you have no shelter between your assets and your property and the businesses. The cons of the general partnership: in some states, each partner may be personally liable for another partner's negligent actions or behavior. This is called joint and several liability. Disputes among partners can unravel the business, so drafting a solid partnership agreement can help you avoid this. It's more difficult to get a business loan, land a big client, and business credit without registered business entities. Go ahead and change it, Aaron, please. Limited liability company: registered businesses with limited liability for all members. Pros of an LLC: owners don't have personal liability for the business's debts or liabilities. You can choose whether you want your LLC to be taxed as a partnership or as a corporation. Not as many corporate formalities compared to a subchapter S or a CCorp. The cons of an LLC: it's more expensive to create an LLC than a sole proprietorship or partnership, and it does require registration with the state. One of the big conversations about an LLC and why we chose it is because as we were starting our business small, we knew that we were going to be putting our own funds into the business as we began our venture. So we wanted to make sure that the product liability insurance was there. We were protected from our personal assets, were protected from a problem if we experienced it in the business with something we were doing. A cow got out and hurt someone, or someone got sick from a product, or somebody just didn't like it and sued us for whatever reason they chose. We wanted to be able to keep them away from our personal assets. Go ahead and change here, please. CCorp. It's an incorporated business composed of shareholders, directors, and officers. The pros of a CCorp: owners and shareholders don't have personal liability for the business's debts and liabilities. CCorps are eligible for more tax deductions than any other type of business. CCorp owners pay lower self-employment taxes, and you have the ability to offer stock options, which can help you raise capital in the future. The cons of the CCorp: they're more expensive to create than a sole proprietorship and partnerships. Filing fees range from $100 to $500 based on which state you're in. CCorps face double taxation. The company pays taxes on the corporate tax return, and then shareholders pay taxes on the dividends on their personal returns. Owners cannot deduct business losses on their personal tax returns. There are a lot of formalities that corporations have to meet, such as holding board meetings and shareholder meetings, and keeping the meeting minutes and creating the bylaws. Okay, Aaron. Register your business name. LegalZoom is who we used. You can do it yourself. Registering with federal agencies: most businesses do not need to register with the federal government to become a legal entity other than simply filing to get a federal tax ID. Small businesses sometimes register with the federal government for trademark protection or tax exempt status. If you want to trademark your business, brand, or product name, file with the United States Patent and Trademark Office once you've formed your business. If you want tax exempt status for a nonprofit corp, register your business as a tax exempt entity with the IRS. To create an S corp, you'll need to file Form 2553 with the IRS. Okay, Aaron? Registration with state agencies. If your business is a limited liability or corporation or partnership or nonprofit corp, you'll probably need to register with any state where you conduct business activities. Typically, you're considered to be conducting business activities in the state when your business has a physical presence in the state. You often have in-person meetings with clients in that state. A significant portion of your company's revenue comes from that state. Any of your employees work in the state. Some states allow you to register online. Some states make you file paper documents in person or through the mail. Most states require you to register with the Secretary of State's office, a business bureau, or a business agency. A business bureau or a business agency. Okay, Aaron. You have to have a registered agent. So if your business is an LLC, a corp, partnership, or nonprofit, you'll need a registered agent in your state before you can file. A registered agent receives all the official papers and legal documents on behalf of your company. The registered agent must be located in the state where you register, of course. Many business owners prefer to use a registered agent service rather than do this role themselves. We did it ourselves. File state documents and fees. In most cases, the total cost to register your business will be less than $300, but fees can vary depending on your state and business structure. The information you'll need typically includes your business name, its location, the ownership, management structure, or directors, the registered agent information, number and values of shares if you're a corporation. The documents you need and what goes in them will vary based on your state and your business structure. Okay, Aaron? Local agencies. Typically, you do not need to register with county or city governments to actually form your business. If your business is an LLC, a corp, partnership, or nonprofit, you might need to file for licenses and permits from the county or the city that you're operating in. Some counties and cities also require you to register your DBA, a trademark name or a fictitious name if you use one. Local governments determine registration, licensing, and permitting requirements. So visit your local government websites to find out what you need to do. You can do all of this yourself, or you can utilize a service like LegalZoom to do it for you, or hire an attorney. For businesses such as sole proprietorship, filing paperwork yourself is very cost effective, but any business structure higher than that might really need to be handled by a professional. Okay, Aaron.
It looks like we might have a couple of questions, my friend. So if you're okay, let's
do that. Sure.
Take a couple of those. Okay. There's one above here. This one goes back a little bit. What would be a reasonable yearly income for the first year?
Well, that really depends on what your venture is, how large your property is, how much infrastructure you have put in. Our reasonable income the first year, we were at a loss for the first 3 years just due to infrastructure costs. We made profit off of the sales of our product, but our business as a whole was a loss. And that really depends on your revenue streams, right? So if you're intending to I want to make, let's say, $10,000 pure profit the first year, you're probably going to need to triple your production. So the reason I say that is your expenses, you're going to find out a lot of your costs the hard way, just like everyone else does, because your region's going to be different. So processing an animal in a USDA certified facility versus a Texas Department of Ag facility is a significantly different cost with significantly different requirements. Then you have to make sure that you have the space to store all of that. So it really depends on what you're trying to do and how you set yourself up for success. So if I'm going to do it raising a niche crop, let's say I want to grow garlic, I need to make sure that if I want to make $10,000 on garlic, I need to know that I have a dedicated space, a person or entity that's going to purchase that garlic before I even plant it. And I need to make sure that I have a source of getting my seed at a significantly discounted price or at a price that works within my profit margin. So you really need to do a cost sheet and an analysis of each one of those before you start it to understand what you're going to have to do to get to the profit that you want.
Absolutely, and I love that answer, and I love the presentation that Doug has done for you guys, really highlighting one thing I wanted to just mention here is that in the Battleground program, and I think about any agriculture type industry or agency that you work with, we really want to stress the fact that we operate our agriculture operations as businesses. They are a business. We are employed in agriculture as farmers and ranchers. So I just wanted to make a note, and thank you really, Doug, for highlighting all the business aspects of the presentation. So last question real fast is the slide, will the slides be available? Yes, Doug has given me permission to share those. And when you do your pre-post survey and ask you for your emails, I'll send the presentation to all the emails. So I think that's the last question I have now. Are there any other questions? All right, and one final
question.
Oh, go ahead.
Hey, sorry, I wasn't able to watch all the slideshow because I dialed in on the phone instead. Are the slides going to be available online to where I could access those?
So
or is it just the video portion of it?
Yes, the slide, we'll share the slides as well. And I think Zoom lets me get the emails and I'll double check that. But we'll also, when we post the video, we'll post the link to the pre-post survey, and it collects your emails there, so I can share them with you that way too.
Okay, great, thank you.
Absolutely. One note I wanted to make about structuring your businesses and doing registering them and those kinds of things is that through the Texas Secretary of State is where you do your business registration, your entity registration. There are benefits. I know we've got quite a few of our veterans on the webinar today. There are some benefits being a veteran, like sometimes they can waive the cost of incorporating your business and those kinds of things. And just review the site because if I'm not mistaken, that's going to end, that benefit may end soon. So get on to the Secretary of State's website and review the entities and how to submit your registration if you want to do that. All right, my friend, I'll hand it back over to you.
Okay, thank you. So meet with an accountant. Choose a certified or chartered accountant. Choose an accountant with relevant expertise in what you're doing. In this case, someone familiar with farm taxes and accounting. Tap into your social networks and government business associations to help you choose a vetted accountant. Decide how the accounting work will be divided. Will you simply hand over a box of receipts that you've been holding all year and let them do the rest? Or are you going to utilize some software, the same software your accountant does, so you make their job easier? We actually sort everything out. We do it in QuickBooks. We sort it out in a spreadsheet. We walk into our tax preparer and our accountant, and it's easy for them to look for holes and things that we've missed and find the deductions that we didn't get, and it saves in the cost of their preparation for our taxes. Interview several candidates before you choose one, and negotiate any fees depending on how much work you're willing to put in on the front end, that they may be willing to charge you a little less for their services. Next slide, please. Get your EIN, Federal Tax Identification Number, and it is used to identify a business entity. Generally, businesses need an EIN. You may apply for an EIN in various ways. Now you may apply online. It's a free service offered by the IRS, and you can get your EIN immediately. You must check with your state to make sure you need a state, to see if you need a state number or charter. Open a business bank account, set up a payment processing system, Square or PayPal here. Set up a home office. You want to have a space set aside for all your business paperwork. This can help prevent confusion and loss of documentation later. And actually, in some states, if you're running a business, you have to have a separate room or building for your business. Next slide, please. I'm blasting through these because I know we're short on time. So to the person that asked the question about what is a good starting profit to make, I'll go through this, but at the very bottom of this is a formula that's important. Traditionally, when you talk to people about how you make a profit, they figure it as income minus expenses equals profit. That's typically how businesses figure that out. I would like for you to think at it from a different way. Income minus profit equals expenses. So you define what you want your income to be minus your profit. That will tell you up front what you have to spend. So if I know how much income I want and I know what my profit should be, if I subtract my profit from my income, that tells me how much money I have left over for the year to spend. So it's another way of figuring out how to financially plan and understand upfront exactly how much money I have to spend on expenses. So it gives me the ability for cost avoidance. I can find other ways to not spend money knowing I have a budget that I have to keep it under. A lot of farming, the way it works is we buy the animals, we feed the animals, something comes up we didn't budget for, we go out and spend that money. We're in a drought this year, I had to buy extra hay, or I have to buy cubes, or I have to buy extra medication, or I had a cow that got sick. At the end of the year, we say, here's what we brought in, here's what our expenses were, and then we get to see what our profit is or isn't. If you do it this other way, you understand up front what your expenses are, and you will know how everything impacts your profits. Next slide, please. The change in the formula and the way we were just discussing it, in which the farmer rancher is now looking at their agricultural activities as a means to a profitable business, not just a means of producing a certain crop or commodity. This assists the producer in setting a price for their product rather than accepting someone else's price. Many people who have taken to heart this change in formula have decided to change enterprises or market their products differently in order to create the profit margin they wanted, such as a producer that decides to seek buyers for his cattle rather than going to the sale barn. Likewise, they looked at all their expenses and realized they could get rid of equipment or change production methods to reduce expenses and create more profit. This kind of thinking can sometimes yield significant profit that can then be invested in critical areas of your business or be used to reduce debt. Next slide, please. Conclusion. Better business plans provide us a roadmap that not only assists us during our fundamental periods, but also through the entire life cycle of our businesses. The team that built the Battleground to Breaking Ground training program has many, many years of experience. It's our intention to provide you a slightly different perspective based on our own personal experiences versus what they've also given you from their educational experiences. Please feel free, anybody, to email or call us if you'd like, if we could be of assistance or if we can answer any questions. Our number's posted there. It's readily available. We post it to the world. So thank you for listening today, and I hope that it provides you some assistance in your ventures.
Well, my friend, you did an awesome job. And like I said, there was a question earlier about financial resources and accessing financial resources. And I can tell you from experience from working with Farm Credit and Farm Service Agency and National Center for Appropriate Technology, or USDA, Natural Resource Conservation Services. They all have one thing in common, is that if you are going to ask somebody for money, you have to have a plan of how you're going to spend that money and how you intend to pay them back. So business planning is very important, something I think that we all even sometimes take for granted. I know a lot of times it's not the funnest part, but when we're talking about starting a farm and ranch, it is probably one of the most important things you can do is to make sure our economist for the Battleground program says it's pretty famous for saying, I want you to make sure that you plan it on paper. So if you lose money on paper and you don't lose money in real life, in the real world. So I think it's really important to plan that out well. So thank you, my friend, for all
and there's,
great presentation.
and there's another piece to that too. Everything you said, I completely agree with. And what we found is that our business plan became the map for our business. So if it's not in our business plan, it's not happening. We have to know the TCO of everything that we're doing, the total cost of ownership, and our return on investment in everything that we're doing. So that business plan changes over time, and it becomes the map and the compass that guides your business. Anything that's not there or that's not reflected there is going to be a cost to you because you're going to miss something.
Absolutely, that is great advice, and something we all know for sure. Being producers is that once you start varying away from those, but just in general daily life, if you vary off of that budget much, then you're really eating into profits and your ability to do other things somewhere down the line. So
what was my original presentation, Erin, when we first started this? It cost me, before I knew about Battleground to Breaking Ground, it cost me, my wife and I, $168,000 to start a grass-fed beef operation on 20 acres.
Yes, yeah, because and had you known us, have all those planning pieces, right? We would have,
That's right.
been able to drastically reduce that for you, but we're glad you made all those mistakes and share them with us so that other people don't have to. So thank you. So, well, we'll take any final questions you guys have. We're happy, again, we'll share that presentation with you. The last thing I'm going to ask you to do is to go back to your, to the link that we had. Let me see if it'll let me take this down here and go back to your event feedback form. Hopefully you still have your event feedback pre-post survey here posted. And then now you're going to take your post-survey questions. And hopefully we've taught you something, gone from no knowledge to some, or even further than that. So if you'll go ahead and take those questions now, or answer those questions on your post survey, and then we'll leave it open, the mic open for a little bit and the chat box open for a little bit, and we'll address any questions that you have left. And if you don't have any, we're thankful that you got to join us, and we'll make sure you join our events calendar and subscribe so that we can send out our webinars and events to you in the future. All right. So we have a question. We can answer. I could answer that in email, but we can answer it here too. Resources or contacts for raising bison?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. We have some graduates through the Battleground program that raise bison up in North Texas, and there is a Texas Bison Association that is in Texas, and I think our graduate is on, might even be on the board for that association. So there's those folks. Doug, do you know any additional bison resources?
There's some other growers, but they're not managing them well. Our graduate and that association are probably the best ones in Texas.
Yeah, I would agree. And obviously bison are different, and there are some very specific considerations, and that
they're massive.
they are. You should see, if you get a chance, ask him for a picture of his squeeze chute. It's incredible. So we got to visit them not too long ago. It looks like almost like a jail cell that squeezes, but it's really interesting, and just the way they handle is a lot different. So I would definitely get in contact with the association, and they're part of a national association. So if you're not in Texas, I bet Texas would be able to connect you to other resources. So any other questions, guys or gals? All right, everybody. Well, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up there. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll get to visit with you guys soon. If you have additional requests for workshops or webinars, you're welcome to send us those through the txagribility@gmail.com through our website, and hopefully we will be able to get to see you guys soon at a workshop or an event. And if you have any other questions, you've got our emails and our numbers, and I hope you have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we'll see you guys again in January. Well,
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, my friend. We'll talk soon.
Real fast
Okay,
too,
bye-bye.
if y'all are interested in more information about taxes and how that stuff works, we're doing the next webinar on January 23rd at 2 p.m. With someone who is also a past participant that does taxes for a living. So if that's something y'all are interested in, be sure you can register on our website at txagribility.com and get that information too. It should be a really great webinar as well.
Absolutely.
Mackenzie.
Yeah, there's quite a few things that have changed on taxes in the last year or two. So here's our calendar. I just joined our events, and so here's that tax considerations for farms and ranches, that webinar. So you guys can hop on there and join us through there. So I think that's it, you guys. And we'll, like I said, this is recorded. We'll go ahead and post it to the YouTube channel probably after the holiday would be my guess. And then we'll also send out the PowerPoint slides. And if you didn't get a chance to do that pre-post survey, we'll post that as well. So I'm grateful for all of you, and I hope you guys have a blessed day, blessed week, and we'll see you in January. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, Aaron.
Yes, sir.
So the 18th, 19th of January, we're going to do rotational grazing. We're going to do a rotational grazing class.
Oh, okay. 18th and 19th of January.
I'm putting a flyer together. I'll get it over to you, Mackenzie.
Okay, great. Thank you, my friend.
You guys have a Merry Christmas. If you need something, give me a call.
We'll do it. We'll talk to you later.
You too, Doug.
Bye-bye.
Bye.